I was really thinking, I'm like, I don't want to talk to Lindsay about community. Everybody talks to Lindsay about community. I know like that's your jam. And of course, like people are going to want to learn from you and hear about that. And I think people will get that just by you being you and how you
Yeah.
communicate. But
Yeah.
every conversation that I've been having with someone lately or anything that's been really present in my life is like, what's on the other side of like, I need to build community is like a symptom of what? And like,
Mm.
I just keep asking, like, what is this a symptom of? Like, what's the thing underneath that? Like, where if we push past the green grass and past the dead grass and we got deeper into the forest, like, what's there behind all of it for us as human beings? And I'm like, this is what I want to talk to Lindsay about today.
These are my kind of conversations. I'm like,
Yes.
yes, if we could just dive into the depths of the soul in the first 5 minutes, that's my preference nowadays. I'm I've never been great at small talk. I'm really bad at it now.
Same. Same. Okay, well, let's just get into it because I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
I
my
trust
God,
you.
me.
Wherever we want to take it, wherever you don't even know you want to take it, let's just go there. I'm going to get
Okay,
this a
first
little
of all,
closer to me.
welcome to the More Alive podcast. I'm like not even gonna chop any of maybe
Great.
just the
But
beginning, but I'm
you know
like,
what people, that's honestly what people probably want to hear is how do
yeah,
we just hop on and connect as girlfriends before we even are trying to make content. I feel like
yeah,
that's the kind of content I'm loving to create right now is the most authentic content where it's a little bit of both. I think we are craving that as a society is
yeah,
we want more authenticity from people, which is a word that gets thrown around a lot,
yeah,
but we can feel it when it's there and we can feel when it's missing,
yeah.
you know?
Authenticity just means truth. Like, am I telling the truth?
Love that.
And like I had Jen from Iconic Magazine interviewed me on her podcast the other day, and she's like, Andrea, would it be okay if I just asked you a bunch of questions because I'm going through some stuff and I could use some help? And that was the whole podcast, and I was like, this is the best interview
The
ever.
best, right? I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, to give people a little bit of an update about like who you are and how I know you, I know a lot of my audience will already know you. I'm sure many of them have been to your beautiful event that I got the pleasure of experiencing last year. But
Yeah.
I ran into Lindsay at Rachel Luna's event years ago, and we met each other in a hotel room after an event. And it was like, who are
As
you?
one
And it was the
does.
best, as one does, the best girl talk ever of just everybody sitting on the
Yeah.
bed like they've been best friends for years. And all of us made each other this promise of like we would support each other's events. And
Yeah.
last year I was like, it's time. I have to go to Lindsay's event. I have to make good on that promise. And it was the right time. I actually have checked in every single year and I'm like, God, can I go?
Yeah.
Every
Because that's a
year.
real
And
thing too.
last, yeah, exactly. Um, but how I know you or who I know you to be is a phenomenal community builder, founder of Powerhouse Women. And the thing that, like I mentioned, I want to talk to you about today is like you're so good about putting women into a room and cultivating depth and cultivating realness and like bringing to the surface like roots that people are like craving to be seen, known, heard, and understood and getting to like witness. Like I have chills. I have a long sleeve shirt on, but like I do have chills because I went by myself to that event. Like I knew Catherine was speaking and I was like, oh, I'll just go support my client. Like it'll be fun. I really want to go support
Yeah.
Lindsay. And then just like being in that room, not knowing almost anyone, like seeing that level of community and richness that you've built was um, mesmerizing.
Mm.
Like how, how I'm like, I don't want to ask you about community, but I'm like going to ask you, I guess, what do you think about when you're bringing women together in a room where you're like, I want to create something that's real for people? Like, what is it
Mm.
that's going inside of you? Is it like something that you were craving and
Yeah.
couldn't find? Like, help me to
It's actually
understand.
taken me a little while to be able to articulate what the process feels like within me that has the external result that people see, because part of it I've had to just accept that it's that zone of genius that I don't know how I know to do certain things. I just follow my intuition
Hmm.
deeply on every level. My human design is also, I'm a 2-4 generator. So the two is, that's actually what Catherine is too. We both have that in common. The two part of it, the numbers in human design, part of my gift is that I don't know how to explain what I know to do, but the things that I'm really good at, I'm just good at them and I don't even know how or why. I think combining that with understanding who I am as a person, I even said to you, I was like, let's just go deep into the soul within the first 5 minutes. That's the kind of connections I crave in my own life. So it started as a simple desire to create that depth with women who were thinking as big as I wanted to think. And what I now realize and I can put into words is I was looking to create a space that didn't exist for me at the time. Now there are other spaces, or I just have these friendships. I can create this for myself on demand. But what I didn't have at the time was a space that felt equally safe for me to be seen as my biggest version of myself. I could share my wildest ambitions. I could share and be really proud of the things that I'm great at and not get that little side eye or feel that
Yeah.
undertone of that makes me uncomfortable because I'm not thinking that big. I was craving a place that it felt equally safe to be seen on that level and safe to really share the challenges because this was back in 2016, 2015. If we think about even where social media was at that time, it was very much, it was more the trend to have these very curated feeds, which were beautiful.
Mhm.
But there's a part of our brain, a very survival oriented part of our brain that doesn't really understand. If I'm seeing this beautiful picture of what Andrea's life looks like, I'm not seeing the moments that I can actually relate to. And I don't necessarily think it's appropriate all the time. I don't share all of my darkest moments, most of them on social media, until I can share them from a place where it's more of a scar and not a scab. But it
Right.
kind of fucks with our brain because then we are constantly bombarded with what looks like this highlight reel. And I was really taking myself on. I was really facing my fears and my doubts and my all the things that needed to transform about me so I could sit here today as this version of myself. And there weren't as many conversations that I could find at that time where people were just being honest. You know, the really
Yeah.
successful women who are killing it were sharing about like the last time they ugly cried like a week ago. People were sharing these
Yeah.
very beautifully polished versions of the struggle that happened 10 years ago, and at least that's what I was observing. And so I was like, where's the place where I can be all of me? I can have the challenges, I can have the struggles, I can feel met in that place, but I can also feel celebrated, and my ambition, my the size of my dreams can be normalized.
Hmm.
And it started unknowingly with that simple desire. And the more I shared that in the ways that I could share it, I didn't have the words to put to it back then, but I really think it was the energy that I was sending out that drew in the women who wanted the same thing, and combine that with the more tactical piece of it. I've always had a very small audience in comparison to anyone else in this industry. I still have super small email list, converts really high. I have grown a social media following, but just really hit some strides in that in the last couple of years. So when this all started, I had a small audience and I never saw that as a problem. I just saw
Yeah.
that as an opportunity to build intimacy. And I think that combination of knowing I just had to think differently and that I could prioritize connection between people who were attracted to what we were doing, it wasn't even a marketing strategy, but it ended up being the best marketing strategy that has grown this very organic word of mouth movement. It's bigger than just community. You feel it. And I tell people all the
Hmm.
time, I can explain what the Powerhouse Women event is like, but it's visceral. When you're in the room, you
Yeah.
feel it and you almost can't put your finger on it,
You can't.
but it's an energy that is intentional. There's intention behind it. I didn't know at the time what I was creating or how I was doing it. But those are the things that I focus on, is that intimacy, creating a space that it's equally just feels like you can be safe and seen at the same time, which is very hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And also just really prioritizing the connection, connecting people with each other, decentering myself. Part of that was because I was really uncomfortable holding that space and just holding the light at first. But what I ended up doing was really helping people realize that the reason they were really there was to build their own smaller community of the people who would really champion them and support them, especially if they didn't have that in, wherever their home was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been beautiful. I mean, we're almost 10 years in, and it's just been beautiful to watch it evolve.
That's crazy. Like people
Mm-hmm.
are like putting your stage on their vision board list.
Mm,
I feel like when you said the who do you think you are comment, I'm like, I feel like Powerhouse Women took who do you think you are as a comment and turned it into a compliment.
mm,
Like all of a sudden you walk into a room like yours and you're like, yeah, who do I think I am? Like it's so good. And the thing that I also noticed right away is that I wasn't afraid to show like the soft part of my heart in that room with anyone.
mm, mm.
Not a single person was I like I should make sure they know who I am, my accolades, so that I can like prove myself. Like in some rooms, where you feel like you have to show up with a
Yeah.
little bit of your resume before someone gives a fuck who you are.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any of that. There's like no
Mm.
pretentiousness. It's just like everybody is there to just they're like, I literally can't have a conversation with you until I can go into the center of your heart. Like, who's
Yeah.
here? Who
Yeah.
are you in there?
Yeah.
When you
That's like the
think
biggest compliment.
about good, it should be. It's such an exceptional space. As you've been growing your business and really creating a space like that for people, has there been a time in your business, personal life or professional, or I guess like personal community or professional, where you really felt misunderstood?
Mm. That has been a big, I think the energy behind what triggers me about being misunderstood, which is really rooted in this fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
part of what I'm here in this lifetime to heal for myself and for others. That's why creating belonging means so much to me. It has been this consistent opportunity to meet different forms of being misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
And I will often say, when I'm interviewed or just if I'm at the grocery store, I will also bring this into conversation. You know, I it's kind of what you started with. It's like, yeah, everyone can ask about community. They can say, "How did you do it?" What I wish more people would ask is, "Who did you have to become?" Because what they're seeing is just the external result of deep internal changes I've made and had the opportunity to make. And for me, in this lifetime, a lot of my opportunities and triggers and tests come in the form of realizing how important it was to me to be seen in a certain light, to be seen as a good person, for people to
Yeah,
know, like if someone could see inside my heart, they would really see this
right.
endless love for all people. I've tried this on with people I could easily hate right now. And still I'm like, you know what? I said to a friend, I think my default setting is love. And whenever I'm going through a transformation portal, it brings me to whatever is not love within me and then helps me find my way back there. So I say this to say that, who I've had to become in order to be at this level of holding this vision is someone who has not closed her heart off to people, even if they misunderstand.
Mm.
And someone who can hold fierce protection of my own heart. Like in the face of being misunderstood is actually the places where it's brought me to this place of, no, I know who I am, and
Mm.
rooted me into that, while also holding compassion that the other person might have a whole different perception of the person I am, and it might really trigger them. Or
Yeah.
maybe I even like go to the depths. I'm thinking of one specific instance early on. It was really before Powerhouse Women took off. And I remember it was early, it was like this time in the year. And I always share this story with a word of caution because you'll get your answer if you pray this prayer. But I prayed this prayer and I said, God, just show me what's in the way.
Oof.
Show me what's in the way. So
I'm gonna
naive.
cry.
I said, show me what's in the way. I can feel that I'm meant to serve on a bigger level. I can also feel that I'm the one thing that could get in the way of this having the impact it's meant to make. Whether it's Powerhouse Women, I'm just talking like my
Yeah.
life. I don't think
Right.
this is the only thing I'll ever build. And the answer came about a month later in the form of someone who came at me pretty hard, like an I Hate Lindsay club, and went on an I Hate Lindsay campaign to the
Yeah.
depths where I just was like, I just didn't really know this much hatred could exist. And
Yeah.
it was so interesting to stop and see how much that just wrecked me.
Hmm.
One person
Yeah.
misunderstanding. And it made me realize what an idol my reputation had become, you know? And I remember
Mm.
being like, I remember I used to have this hiking trail by my old house, and I hiked up to the top and I just was sobbing and just also acutely aware of how there was the option and other people might be so unfazed by one person not liking them. And I realized
Yeah.
in that moment I was getting the answer to that prayer, that wanting to hold more space, wanting to grow a bigger community. I wasn't equipped for it. I wasn't expanded enough because I wasn't willing at that, until I had the opportunity to be with being misunderstood. I wasn't willing to. I wanted to I wanted to create something that felt safe for me and
Hmm.
very controlled, and that inherently is small.
Yeah.
So it was the most transformative season of really being with what it felt like to be that misunderstood. And over about a 6-month period, I remember I made the conscious choice not to go seek external validation from anyone. Meaning, all of our mutual friends. This was someone who was a friend I had let in pretty close into my circle, and I knew that eventually that word and that perception of me was going to get spread around. And I remember just saying, like, again, I found this place in myself that it was like the root of the transformation, because I intuitively knew everything in me wanted to go and defend myself. And I just kind of sat with this question of, but what if I just don't?
Hmm.
Am I willing to surrender the thing that I think, is so important to me? It's like my ego just wanted to believe that, oh my gosh, like if people think this is true, what does this mean? All this bullshit. And I remember sitting with, okay, but just what if I don't? And
Hmm.
I remember praying another prayer, and I said, okay, God, if I'm really not who I think I am, like, let me try on. Maybe this other person's perception, is there some truth in it? Because it's triggering pretty hard right now.
Yeah.
If I'm not who I say I am, and my reputation is built on a lie, then take it and I'll rebuild. Like, I'll just rebuild it as like a
Ooh.
more authentic version of me. And this sounds like really great to say now on this podcast, but let me tell you, this was a dark season.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that, I think it's the reminder that when someone is spreading anything that just has kind of like a very low frequency to it, people can see through that. And so
Yeah.
it took the people out of my life that needed to be taken out. And it showed me who really saw me for who I was. And it built some boundaries that the very codependent, people pleasing version of me before that didn't have. And most people don't know that season, it was like 8 or 9 months, preceded the biggest growth. I mean, Powerhouse Women took off after that. And almost no one knows the dark night of the soul that I went through in order to prepare myself to hold that space. And quite honestly, I just last year in 2024 went through another version of it in a different way, but that felt very similar, where it felt like knowing that I can feel this expansion calling me, and that is very authentic. I didn't want life to change in order for me to step into it. And so I was always constantly in this resistance. And I went through another dark, more like a dark summer of the soul. It was more than a night. And I'm fully expecting the expansion on the other side is coming. I can feel it, because you're not ushered into a death and rebirth like that, death of your ego, your identity, whatever it is, death of relationships, unless it's preparing you for something that you are calling in consciously or unconsciously. And so that's what a lot of people don't know behind the scenes of this community, because it's continued to strip me. My commitment to my own growth has continued to strip me of anything that's in the way of, again, my truth, my authenticity, my fullest self expression. And it's been wild, but also I wouldn't go back and change any of it.
Yeah. I didn't know that I was coming to a sermon today. I should have. I know you.
Amen.
Well, hypothetically asking for a friend who may also be going through something really similar as we
Right. We'll
speak.
just we'll just speak for her right now.
You mentioned, what if I just say nothing? Is that what you did?
Mm-hmm. I there was so my husband at the time knew, because that's like the person who's closest to you. And then I had a really, really good friend who was the first person that this other individual uh, kind of shared her side of events with. And I remember she called me one day, or we worked out together, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to happy hour today with so and so." And she goes, "I should have known, because your response was kind of like, oh, cool." And I just let it. The FaceTime I got afterwards, she goes, "Why didn't you tell me?" So there were two people sort of like who knew what was going on, not because I had, gone and enlisted support or whatever. And it felt like I could feel my ego fighting it, because I just
Mhm.
wanted, it was like it hurt so much. It hurt the part of me that had to die, that part
Yeah.
that just like really was attached to how people saw me. It hurt
Hmm.
so, like, physical pain. It hurt.
Yeah.
And so the medicine is usually the opposite of what we really want to do to get a quick fix in that moment. That's the hardest part, is you don't it's not like you don't get the transformation, you just slow down the transformation if you default to getting a quick fix of, in this case, validation.
Right.
And it was tough. I mean, I won't say that there weren't times that I really wanted to, or that I didn't, just have like be I was on that edge of picking up the phone and calling someone, just to, like, it's like you want to scratch the itch, but I just kept asking,
Hmm.
like, what's on the other side of this tension I'm in right now? Like, what's right on the other side of this?
Yeah.
It was like a moment by moment thing for, like I said, about, I mean, a good 6 months. It was I know you have a network marketing background too. This was the beginning of the end of my network marketing career. So to even play this out even more, it was more than just a friend, a contact. It was like I got kicked out of the 5,000 person like Facebook community I started. I mean,
Holy
and it was kind of
fuck.
also a universal, like, it was God saying, like, you've overstayed your welcome. You want to go
Hmm.
build this other thing, and you haven't left yet. So there were a lot of other lessons in it. A lot
Yeah.
of things like very tied to the ego. And so
Hmm.
for your friend, or for anyone who's listening to this, because here's what I know: not a day has gone by that I don't hear from a girlfriend who's in the thick of it with some area of life right now. You are being tested. Things are
Hmm.
being stripped away. Things are
Hmm.
being revealed. And it's so easy to sit here on a podcast and say, there's something great hidden inside that for you. But when you're in it, you feel like, what the actual fuck?
One of the things, and like obviously the friend is me, so we'll get straight to the meat of this. And one of the things that I have noticed is one of the identities that I have laid down. And I thought that I had finished laying it down with the end of my marriage and at the end of 2021, like more formally in 2022. But um, was that I had been on this like spree of playing Captain Save-A-Ho. Like my Kate was firm and secure,
Yeah.
starting with my mom and then friends, and then like when you're identified as the strongest person in the room who kind of never cracks visibly. It can be easy for that identity to feel comforting because there is a sense of control around it.
Mm.
And I have, realized that there had been some relationships that I hadn't really fully seen that I was still like attempting to like save people and like laying
Mm-hmm.
those relationships down and letting them fall away. I described it the other day to a friend. It's like if you try to suffocate an iguana. I live in Southern Florida, so they're everywhere. Like if you try to suffocate an iguana, like it's gonna lash
Yeah.
back at you, right? And for a while, it's going to get worse before the oxygen stops, right? And so, like that primal part of our brain, when we remove oxygen from a relationship, obviously, this is very metaphorical. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not talking about removing oxygen from anyone, but a thing like oftentimes things can get louder before they get quieter. And I got the same message like, Andrea, shut the fuck up. Just
Mm-hmm.
stop, just stop.
Mm.
But that sensation of wanting to be like, no, but don't you see me? Remember this
Mm-hmm.
is so fucking hard.
Mm.
It has honestly been one of the greatest challenges of my life. I've seen it in every relationship that I've realized like I can't move forward with me, ending, relationships with men that I've dated, in the season before I met Keith. And like I noticed this thing that I was doing. I became so hyper aware of my behavior when I completed this relationship with this guy at the end of 2023. And I would start to text him and I would notice that when I was trying to control his perception of me, like my thumbs got tighter.
Oh, whoa.
And I could like even see it, and and then I would notice it in my thumbs, and I'm like, whatever I just typed has to get deleted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is like kind of the beginning of the end of this pattern for me of like trying to
Mm.
control people's perceptions of me, because as what happens for you, like the truth always comes out.
Mm.
But now I do understand why the Kardashians have everyone sign an NDA.
NDA.
I almost had Keith sign one the other day.
Well, and
My boyfriend.
when you say the truth always comes out, it's on both sides, meaning
Right.
there's a part of me that very much wants to be like vindicated. So, what I
Yeah.
mean by that is my real work in the, the communication I received. In this case with that woman, it was a text, one of those you had to like click and it unfolded into a lot of paragraphs. So there was a lot to be said, and noticing what do I react to immediately, like that. No, I'm not, or I want to
Yeah.
give you examples of how this isn't true, and just
Right.
sitting with where is the truth in this.
Yeah.
I might not find any, but the truth always comes out. And if I'm just using these triggers to reinforce the ego dance and the mask that I've created to feel safe in the world, which I'm not even I'm not even mad at myself for doing that. I think that's what therapy has really taught me, is like that same level of compassion for myself. Like, of course, Lindsay at 6 created that. That was so smart of her. That was like
Right.
literally so brilliant. And right now, is it helping me have the kind of relationships that I want? And that was part of the shedding I went through last year, is I realized that in these places that there's just this subtle inauthenticity of like not being able to say the full truth, and realizing what self-abandonment it required for me to keep being in those dynamics. And it's like then when you
Yeah.
see it, you can't unsee it. And there's only one thing to do, which is to speak the truth with love
Mhm.
and be with the consequences. And let it reveal truth for
Yeah.
you, for anyone else involved. And we can't control whether the other person sees the truth that's available for them. I can only control what truth does it reveal about me. And then just sit with like, oh wow, okay. uh I feel like this is reflecting back to me that I can come across sometimes as having an ego.
Yeah.
Ooh, that feels icky. Let me just like sit with this. Okay. Like can I just like find a way to be accepting of like my ego and what it does for me, what's trying to do for me? I don't know, it's like the more I've sat with the uncomfortable things that I didn't want to be with before, they almost, it's like you think it's this solid thing, and the more you give it attention and really acceptance for what it is, it kind of starts to turn into like this fuzzy, hazy, like it's there, but it's, you realize what an illusion it always was.
Hmm.
And I don't know. Then I'm kind of in this weird place now where I'm like, fuck, I don't know who I am. Because everything I thought I was really was just so built on this program. And so it's been actually like, I don't think that's talked about enough. Like the deeper you go within yourself, you kind of lose your entire identity, which is a powerful place to be, but very disorienting. Like I'm still
Yes.
just not quite grounded to anything because I'm not who I thought I was, and I'm not motivated by the things I thought I was before. So I'm just kind of out here floating and like still showing up, but not quite sure who I am.
Oh my God, I was just having a conversation with a close friend who'd been really, really struggling, and we were talking about. I was going to try to look at what I texted her, but we were talking about identity, and I was like, so identity is the thing that's fixed. It's the thing that was true on day one, and it's the thing that's true on your last day on earth.
Mm.
And so everything else is an experience, which just means an experience is just what it feels like to have energy pass through you, just
Mm.
a form of energy passing through you. And she said that she was really struggling with connecting to herself. And I was like, so who were you on day one that's still true today? Like, what is that? What is, if you were to go, like we started with, like, past the dead grass and the green grass and all of the things that are just kind of in the path along the way, and you weren't deeper into the forest, what's the thing that's always been there? What's the
Mm.
thing that's been and is? And she was like, childlike wonder, truth, connection, honesty. And I was like, that is who you are. That is the
Yeah.
thing that I think we oftentimes really think like where I've been is who I am versus just a pit stop along the way to the next pit stop along the way to the next pit
Yeah.
stop.
That's
But
so
this
good.
whole idea of identity really, really can feel very disorienting. That's who I was when I showed up at your event last year. I'm like, I don't even, I woke up and I was like, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing. I know I texted you and I was like, you are kind of the precipice of the More Alive brand because it was the download that I got at your event. I knew that I had to be there.
Mm.
I thought it was
Mm.
to support Catherine once I got there. And I was like, no, there's something really here for me in this season of like, I don't know what's going on. And the universe showed me the symptom by I started launching one of my biggest programs, the thing that like sells itself. It like you launch it and just sales come in. It's one of those things where you're like, this is the Midas touch. It's one of the like the creme de la creme experience as an entrepreneur that everybody craves and wants. Like I had it. And then I launched it, and for 3 fucking days, zero sales came in. And I was like, hello. I'm like, somebody test a sale. Is the website broken?
Right.
Like,
Right.
none of that. None
Wow.
of that. And the universe was like, get quiet. We've been trying to grab your attention, but you've been so distracted by your fucking Stripe notifications that we took them away. And then
Again,
there
we'll
are
get the
the
answers.
identity crisis. Yes. Okay, so if you were to pray a brave prayer today, not just for you, but for all women, what would that prayer be?
Mm. I think it would be the same prayer that I did pray, but with an addition. It would be, show me the way, but then show me what's in the way. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think it's less intimidating to ask, show me what's in the way, if we understand that that is the path.
Mm.
That is the path to getting the thing that you want. And the thing that you want, the desire that you have, whether it's to build a business or it's just, a lot of the women in our community, it just starts with just this feeling inside that you can't shake, that you are meant for something more. You don't have to know what more is, but it's that more is an invitation to dive into this work that we're essentially talking about. And the more times you've been through a correction, we'll call it, or these lessons that we've been sharing, we can share them with reverence for ourselves and the women we've become. We can share them even with gratitude. That sounds so
Mm-hmm.
fucking cheesy when you're in it. You're like, there's no way I'm going to be grateful for this. No, you might. You really might. Because there's no way you could have become the version of yourself who has the thing you want without walking through that path. So, I still love to ask, show me what's in the way. But I couple it with, give me just a connection to the bigger purpose, why I'm here. Because I think when we're anchored in the fact that there's a purpose for it, it makes it less intimidating to face the thing. Because especially the first few times that we face it, mine is deeply rooted in a fear of rejection and abandonment. So guess what I get to confront when I want to go to the next level? Another form of rejection and abandonment,
Yeah.
to the point where now it's not quite as, I don't think all the lessons have to be the gut punch that some of them are, especially when we realize that it's all an illusion in a sense. Like, the events are really happening, but the way we're perceiving them is showing us the answer to that question. And if we
Yeah.
can just get comfortable enough to stay in that tension and keep asking questions, really asking powerful questions, that's where your transformation lies. So I'm not as afraid now when things are being stripped from my life. And even last year, what was stripped was something I never imagined letting go of. And it was a marriage, and it was really painful. It was traumatic. There was betrayal. It hit every single one of my deepest wounds.
Yeah.
And I knew that it wouldn't hurt the way it hurt unless it held within it this transformation, this key to unlock transformation. That's not to say that I think that happened. I don't think it's fair to say everything happens for a reason. No, sometimes people make really shitty decisions.
Yeah.
And even in that, we can find our key to unlock that next transformation. And so it was easier to go through that season, even though it was a year of deeply grieving, deeply being with pain I had never experienced before. I knew I had the hope to balance it out, that I knew I wouldn't be put through a death and rebirth portal like that unless it reinforced what I already know, that I am here in this lifetime to do something really profound. I already am, in a lot of ways. I know that there's more for me to experience, which means there's more transformation for me to go through. Therefore, it's going to show me where I'm not currently expanded enough to have that impact.
Yeah. Wow. God, so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
My boyfriend's daughter was playing guitar the other day, and she was just up in her room. I told her, I yelled at her, and I was like, "Open your door," because I love listening to her. She's like a
Ah,
like a Billie Eilish type of like singer songwriter,
yes.
very
Oh,
very talented. And so she opens her door, and she's just like strumming on the guitar, and she just yells, and she's like, "Guitar is hard." And I just yelled back from downstairs. I was like, "It's easier when it's not important." And she's like,
yeah.
"What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, it's really important to get it right. Does it get harder or easier?" And she's like, "Harder." And I was like, "Curiosity opens portals." And she just got
Mm.
really quiet. And then all of a sudden, 90 seconds later, she yells, I got it. She like
Wow.
strums and she just like
Oh,
hits it. And I love what you just said, because like when you look at the thing that feels hard, whether it's learning something new or whether it's letting go of something old, like curiosity opens portals. And the way that you just showed up for that in such a fucking magnificent like way. I'm like, how many times have you been on Earth? Tell me the number.
probably a lot. Yeah. I have a feeling it's been, this isn't my first rodeo.
It's not your first rodeo. No, 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 of course not. And that's why your mic is on, right? Like you're here to open the
Mhm.
portals for other people and to
Mhm.
share these in such a beautiful way that's like truly to be of service. And um, I was thinking this morning actually, I was like, I wanted to share a story of something that I had just helped support someone through. And I did a check and I was like, do I want to share this story so that I can be seen and validated?
Mm.
Because like I kind of was awesome in that moment. And I was like,
And that feels so good.
it does.
Mm.
And then I was like, or do I want to share this story because it's just purely of value to
Mhm.
other, and it could be both, but I have been really more conscious of what is the root of this decision. Do I want to share this so that I can be seen, known, and understood, or do I want to share this simply because the root is that this is of service?
Mm.
And I have
That's so
noticed that when I
powerful.
do that more and more and more, the whole people who are going to choose not to validate me don't show up
Mm.
because it wasn't rooted in that in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if, I think for a lot of us who have a desire to be public facing, have businesses, even if you have fears of visibility to overcome, that is such a powerful, like that could be its own masterclass in noticing the energy around certain things. Because again, if our identity is rooted in getting a certain response, or you just know, again, you can't unknow it when your mind kind of like feeds you that, even just that split second question of, huh, what's the reason behind wanting to share this? It means
Hmm.
like for you in that moment there's something to transform. Now it doesn't mean that you didn't go on and share it, but it's to ground into the energy of why and the energy you want to be behind it when you share it,
Yeah.
and therefore it's received in the way it's meant to be received by who it's meant to be received, and there's no tie to the number of views it's getting or anything like that, because
Right.
it's being shared from a place of pure. I love, there's so many great minds that I love to learn from, and I all of them have said a similar thing in all different ways of, it's really this razor's edge of having an intention behind something and then fully surrendering.
Hmm.
And it's like this understanding that checking my intention and having an intention for sure, but checking where that intention is rooted in, if it's self serving in any, all these little things where it's really coming from lack. That's essentially what that is. Like,
Right.
I want to fill a lack that I feel in me. So I'm going to share XYZ. And realizing that in the moment then that we share it, it's fully surrendering who it's seen by, what happens, if the algorithm hates it, loves it, doesn't matter. Because if we can, and I think, especially as business owners, I'm sure you have a lot of business owners who listen to you, it's realizing like if we can dial in our energy in a moment to moment basis like that, that is where you become so fucking magnetic and powerful. And we
Yeah.
all have egos. Like, no, we're like walking around in this human experience. We're going to have moments all the time where we realize,
Yeah.
oh, I 100% wanted to be seen in that moment.
Yeah.
Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think you hit like spot on such an important energetic about how, like the people who kind of just pop off and you can't even really put your finger on why. It's like either that comes naturally to them and that's not something they had to overcome, like that's just how they operate, or
Yeah.
again, they've really worked through all the layers that you're talking about to really understand and hone in on that energetic underneath why we're doing certain things.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. It's like it's this nuance that you can't unfeel once you are present to it. So I'm like, that's what I'm taking away today. That was powerful.
Yes. Beyond like the results that you get from it, just like how you sit in it feels so much better, right? It's just like the tension that
Mm,
you would feel in your body when you initiate something from a place of like fear or control or lack
mm, mm.
melts away. And like the softness in your body is just different whether you get something from that or not. That is your getting. It's so good. It's
So
so
good.
fucking good when you just exist and create for the sake of existing and creating.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think what I heard in what you just said is then it's the true energy of receiving it
Hmm.
versus I'm out here to make this happen, which takes
Right.
away the power of like the true giving and receiving energy that I'm always trying to understand deeper, you know?
Yeah.
That's so good.
100%. There was this like wild event that happened yesterday that I recognize now that I'm like, that was a test of me. If I was going to put my cape back on, this
Mm.
like fight broke out on my street yesterday. I don't know
Oh
if you saw
gosh.
my post, but like one of the
No.
guys who's moving my house, I'm moving in with my boyfriend right now. One of the movers got into a street fight that I
Mm.
hired. And I'm like,
Mm.
I literally had to check in moment by moment of like, am I running into the situation to stop it, to save it?
Am I
Or,
about to get into a now am I in a street fight? Like what is happening? Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
literally such a moment of actually celebration for me where like there was genuine discernment of like, no, I'm here because this man and I have an agreement. It turns out that he had been stabbed by a woman earlier in his life. And so when somebody started yelling at him and then someone stepped in because he like called her a bitch and which of course he shouldn't have done, but another guy like tried to defend her, pushed
Mm.
him, he swung, like it was a whole thing. Like the cops by the end of all of it were like, this is everyone's fault. Everyone go home.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to jail. You
Time
guys are all
out.
idiots.
Yeah.
But he was,
Yeah.
he's the scrappy Hispanic guy against like the white woman's word, right? And so now he's like, I'm
Mm.
afraid I'm going to go to jail and like freaking out. Now
Mm.
he's like popping off at the cops. And I had the opportunity to just like be present with him and see him and learn
Mm.
what was really going on with him. And
Right.
he actually let me give him a hug and cried in my arms in front of the cop. And it was like such a sweet, sweet, special event. But I'm like, the whole time, I'm like, can I give him a hug? I'm like checking in with God for every decision.
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
offer this man a
Yeah.
hug? Can I offer to assist? Can I? Because that
Yeah.
man was going to jail if he didn't
Yeah.
stop yelling at the cop, right?
Yeah.
Like it was
Yeah.
such a beautiful moment of like celebration of there was it was an opportunity of like genuine connection without me
Mm.
like trying to save someone. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, am I doing it?
Well, and it's like I feel like the other highlight I want to pull out of that is, so in your work, the version of Andrea doing her work in the world is those moment to moment check-ins. Is
Yeah.
can I proceed? Green light, red light. Is this me
Yes.
tipping and dipping into old patterns and being so present and aware of how you could contribute light to a situation that
Yeah.
could have just been perceived in so many different ways. And like when I think about our world and without getting overwhelmed of how it could be so easy to feel helpless. How do we change? How do we get people to get along? How do we bring understanding? I think it's realizing that each of us have our own assignment. Our soul has its own assignment, the thing we're really here to work on and transform into light. Because who knows, the superhero version of you might not have had the level of compassion that that situation called for, and just
Right.
such a beautiful example of how each of us doing our work is the way we transform the world.
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't say that without also acknowledging that that's not an easy task. And it also, we may not see the full, might not see the light that we want to see in the world come to fruition in our lifetime. But whenever
Yeah.
I feel overwhelmed by just the weight of what's happening in the world and the tension that my soul can like very viscerally feel, I go back to how can I practice that in my life today, in my circle? How can I, if I want to see compassion, for people and for certain groups, and for, if I want to see more of that, okay, who am I not offering compassion to? Who am I
Yeah.
right now, like so tied to my view of that one person? And if I can focus on transforming that, knowing that that light does ripple.
Yeah.
And it's not the easy choice to make, to take it on at like that level of my personal work, but like I just really do want to honor that moment and honor you and all the work you did to show up as that version of you, because that is how we actually heal the world. Like, thinking about, we started this talking about community. We're all a part of this community called the human race, and we're
Yeah.
so much more connected than we are being told we are.
Oh my God, yes. What is your what is your wish for 2025 for people, for our community called Earth,
for
humanity,
for Earth School. Who
for
is
Earth
it that,
School?
I forget who calls it that, Earth School? Oh, I've been listening to this new. The podcast is new. I'm newer to his work. Gary Zukov is his name. He's this older gentleman. He's written some books that I heard mentioned over and over and over again. Anyway, he calls it Earth School, and I really like that.
Wait, was he just on the School of Greatness podcast?
It could have been. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay.
He's yeah.
Keep going.
He seems like our type of dude.
Okay.
But you know gosh, what is my wish? I feel like that feels like such a big question, because I think I very much focus on my place in the world. It's almost overwhelming for me to open up my awareness to, you know, Earth School and everyone in it. Um, I don't know if that's an empath problem or what, but I mean, I think ultimately my wish for us all is to understand like that truth that we are all so much more connected. Like we're just connected so much more profoundly than we think we are. And that even challenges me sometimes, it challenges me in terms of thinking of people or situations where, there's one situation in my life right now, I'm like, I would never act like that. And then you better believe in like 30 more minutes, all of a sudden a thought will pop into my mind about how, okay, maybe I didn't do that exact thing, but here's how that energy also exists within me.
Yeah.
It's like that whole idea, if you can spot it, you've got it. Like, okay, I may not have
Yeah.
like betrayed my
Shit.
partner in our marriage, but like, okay, where do I self betray? Where do I
Yeah.
betray? Like, so anyone who I want to judge, it's like, in that moment, again, I just take it on at a personal level because that's what I can control. And I think if we just really can understand that as we're doing that personal work within and working to love the people who've been gifted to us in our, micro communities,
Yeah.
and transform ourselves into the best version that we can possibly be, that would be profoundly healing to the world. But what do I know? I'm just here for whatever round 1000 or something. But that's what feels like truth to my soul at this
You're
moment in time.
I'm in total resonance of what you just said. Like, if you can spot it, you've got it. Where have
Mhm.
I betrayed myself? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, what can we do to support you? What's on your heart that you're like, God, if
Mm.
people knew that I cared this much about it and they just rallied for me and with me, what would we rally for and with you?
Oh, okay, it's a little bit of a different answer. I feel so excited to give this year. I
Mm.
think there's this freedom that I feel on the other side of a really challenging season, that uh and the way that I give is through, my events and retreats and the spaces that I curate. I think that that's just one of the gifts that I get to give to the world is creating those spaces. So we'll do the event again in August, and then even just within my micro community called Powerhouse Women, I'm doing my first one tonight as we're recording this. So you guys will hear this later, but I want to do more of these this year. It was something that we did during the pandemic where I remember sitting with my team and just like looking at each other like, what the, like, the whole world is shut down. Like that was just unprecedented. Like, remember that happened? And I was like, I don't know what to do for people, but I just know that we need each other right now. So we started hosting these calls. I did them every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 months, like a 2-hour Zoom call. And the whole intention was just to remind everybody that they're not alone and to fill their minds with the sense of certainty that there was still possibility, there was transformation. It was kind of like a similar energy to what I feel like I'm noticing in the collective people around me right now of just, being hit with tests and triggers and essentially what I can see as invitations to transform. So all of this to say, I'm going to start doing more of those just connection opportunities this year. And what we just send them out to our whole email list. So if someone's on the Powerhouse Women email list, they'll automatically get the link. But I think that would be the thing that would feel most supportive is, let me show up for you. You listening. This isn't specific to Andrea, although it's for her as well. You'll feel called to plug in to whatever we're doing in the place that you're meant to. Just like you said with attending the event in 2024, you got the clear yes. And I think the thing I'm most excited to bring to those spaces is versions of this conversation, a reminder that you're okay. I know everything around you might feel like it's burning to the ground right now. And that's, both literally and figuratively, because that's been an experience people have had, right? Is realizing that within that, cultivating the community who's going to remind you what's possible right in that moment, in the darkest moment, is one of the best things you can do to support yourself, especially if you're someone who's on an expansion journey. And I would imagine the people who roll with you are the people who are also on an expansion journey with us. So plug in where you feel called to. And I'm really excited to just give from the perspective of someone who went through like the darkest of times last year, especially.
Oh my God. Yeah, my community is here to fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
That's us. You're such a freak. I'm like, what can we do for you? And you're like, I just want to give to you. But I just want to give to you. But I just want to give to you.
Which, well, okay, if you want to do something tangible, then go listen to one episode of the Powerhouse Women podcast and leave a podcast review. That actually fills my soul so much to hear what people resonate with. And, that's honestly the best way you can help any podcast you love is review their shit.
Truly. Okay. I will do that. And I ask everyone else to do that too. And then also my team and I are coming to Powerhouse Women this August as well.
Yes, August 15th, 16th, and 17th this year.
Yeah, I'm coming with an army in tow. And coming back, as soon as I was there, I was texting everyone. I was like, everyone's coming, requirement next year. We're all
it
going.
really is that. It's like something, if you experience it alone or just with one friend, you want to collectively experience it with people. That really is kind of why it grows the way that it does, because everyone comes back and brings friends.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that anyone listening, we'll put all links in the show notes for everyone so that you can creep on the actual event. But you guys just filter through your energy and see where the energy is. Is it in a live event? Is it going to the podcast? Everyone can listen to a podcast. You interview some really, really, really cool, interesting people. So 10 out of 10 recommend the podcast. And then this fun Zoom sounds intimate, delicious, and something that I also need personally in my life. So
I know it's
Lindsay,
like the best. And just this time with you has been the best. These kind of connections and conversations are just what actually give me life. So thank you.
Same. Thank you so much. You guys, we are going to link everything in the show notes. So go follow Lindsay and Powerhouse Women on Instagram. Go check out what she's about. Hit up the podcast, all the things. Obviously, she's the real deal. And I love you so much. You are literally like such a fucking angel on earth.
Love you.